We have the author of More Than a Score, Pat Combs, here with Steve Karsay, Jonathan. Before we get to the book, you're not getting off that easy, Pat, because we're still walking down memory lane. This is the chosen journey. So, Baylor University, before jumping into the pros, how did you go about selecting your college university? I mean, Steve was talking about he was planning to go to LSU. Everybody has their different ways. Was it a geography thing? Why did you pick your particular place to study?
Yeah, didn't do it very well. I went to Rice University first, and so it took me a couple of schools to figure it out. But yeah, and back then there was not the transfer portal, so you couldn't bounce from school to school back then. You basically got there and stayed. But yeah, I went to Rice my first year, and then the pitching coach was let go, and there was just a mess of a staff there at Rice. So I ended up choosing Baylor, and was recruited by a number of different schools. I visited Miami, UCLA, Oklahoma State, Texas, Texas A&M. I had a lot of different choices, but the second go around, I think it just made sense for me to go to a place where I felt like I could get great coaching. There was a pitching coach at Baylor named Sid Hudson. Sid was a well-known pitching coach for the Washington Senators for many years and became a scout and ended up scouting for the Texas Rangers when they moved to Texas. So a lot of scouts that I talked to at the time said, hey, if you could work with Sid, he'll really help you out. So a lot of it had to do with Sid and then the coaching staff at Baylor. And it was just a good fit for me. And I tell players today, Jonathan, really look at the school as a fit and look at the team as a fit, because there's just some cultures that you're not going to be a good fit with. And I found that to be true at Rice, where at Baylor, it was perfect for me. And that's where I really excelled and had a great time there. And not only as an athlete, but as a student. I love kind of a smaller school environment and getting to know professors and taking the classes I wanted to take. So that all played an important part for me.
Yeah, I think that's the smart thing to do, right? Is find the right fit for you. Find where you're going to play. Find the best coaching that's going to be able to help you improve your game and get to that, and not pick a school just because maybe it's, a big name school and that's where I want to go. And, obviously, talking to kids who are in high school now and making that choice is like, make sure you go a place where you're going to play and you're going to get better. There's no reason to go to a school and try to sit on the bench, right? And try to improve your game. I mean, like you said, there's a fit for everybody. And in today's world with social media, with all of the showcases and everything like that, if you can play the game, you're going to be found. It's not like it was 30 years ago where scouts were always combing different, areas and trying to find that diamond in the rough that nobody else could see. It's all put out there today where, you pretty much know, the best 100 players in the country just because of social media and things like that.
Yeah, Stephen, I think it's a great point. I would add to that my two sons could have gone to a Division I school and been preferred walk-ons. So they had invitations to do that, and I just said, guys, look, you can do that, but in today's game, what it really translates to is that you're going to probably sit for a year or two trying to earn a spot. So what I told my sons was go to a place where you can play, and you can play right away, or at least have a chance to play. And they both, my two sons that played baseball, both went to a Division III school, East Texas Baptist. They both walked on the field from day one, never came off the field, had tremendous college careers, and really enjoyed the experience. And then my youngest son gets drafted out of a D3. So as Steve knows, that's the scouts will still find you, whether you're at a D1 or a D3 or NAIA school. It doesn't matter. They're going to find you if you're good enough to play. And when I tell my kids that I coach, I said, go to a place where you're going to get a chance to play and you're going to get a chance to compete. Nobody loves sitting the bench. You're out there working hard every day, just like every other player. You don't get your chance for a year or two, there's a good chance you're going to lose interest in the game. And or if you can't transfer out and find somewhere else to play. But I think that's great advice, is to, really find a great school that's a good fit where you have a chance to compete.
Well, let's continue walking down memory lane, because making it through Baylor and that magical 88 season, and you show up in 1989. Now, I've heard of a term, the golden sombrero. That's when you got the 4 strikeouts in one game, right? Well, you achieved a pitching different golden. It was called the golden season. Steve, have you heard of this as golden season?
never heard of a golden season. I mean, I know there's, the stats, the top three stats for pitchers if you lead the league in those three categories. I didn't, if that's what you're talking about, I didn't know it was called the golden.
No, it's called the golden
Okay.
season because
Oh,
Pat is one of the very few to ever achieve this. Are you ready for this one?
I am.
Single A, double A, triple
Ah,
A, the majors, all in
all in one season.
one golden season. Pat, if I was you at this point, finishing off in 88 and then the golden season, I feel like I'm walking on a cloud at this point. That must have been the best year of your life.
It was a great year. Yeah. And Andrew Jones was the other player to do that our first professional year. So yeah, a lot of it has to do, obviously, with getting drafted by the right team who has that particular need, and I rose through the ranks, with the Phillies, and obviously had a great season. I pitched well enough to earn the spot there in September. And, the funny part of that story was George Culver was our roving pitching instructor for Double A and Triple A. And he came to a game in Reading, Pennsylvania, where I was playing Double A, and he said, "Hey, we're going to promote you to Triple A, and just see how you finish out the last month of the season in minor league ball, and that'll just give us an idea of where to start you for the '89 season." And I said, "Okay, well, what if I pitch well enough at Triple A? Am I going to get a call up this year?" He said, "Well, no, that's not even on the radar with the major league club. They just want to see how you're going to translate from Double A to Triple A." So I go to AAA. I throw a one-hit shutout, a three-hit shutout. In the next game, the general manager for the Phillies, Lee Thomas, comes to Scranton Wilkes-Barre, where I was playing, and meets me in the clubhouse after the game. And so I threw another pretty good game in Scranton, and called me into the coach's office. I didn't know he was there watching the game. And he said, "Well, I guess you're forcing my hand." And I said, "I don't know what that means." He said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, the Philadelphia sports writers are beating the crap out of me for not calling you up. So I'm going to call you up in September." And I'm like going, "Oh, great. So that's how you tell me." Right. So, but I guess it was a force of his hand, or the Phillies definitely had some needs at that time back in the late '80s. They had traded away a lot of their minor league talent when they were making that run in the mid '80s, towards the World Series. So it was just kind of a replenishment of the minor leagues. I got drafted by the right team at the right time. And so, Jonathan, I chalk that up to, a lot of it is God's plan, fate, that I was in the right spot. I did happen to have a great season there in '89, and it got the call up in September.
And we're going to walk through right now. That 89 team was a whopping 67-95. Nick Leyva, the coach, he's been around for many, many years. And I got to say, there's times, I don't know if you both experienced this, but you're working with people, or you're in association with others, whether it's in a sports team or extended friends that you're hanging out with. You're saying they're all very interesting, but I feel so different. Is it me or is it them? And I gotta say, you got cast with a bunch of characters here, so I'm gonna kind of walk through a few of the highlights here, and just love to hear some of your initial reactions when you hear these names. Number one, Darren Dalton.
Yeah, leader, bulldog. I think a great balance of leadership, within the clubhouse, and how he led on the field as well. But yeah, a great finish to his career. Yeah, he was kind of a mediocre catcher for a long time, and then became a lot better later on.
There's quite a few of the Phillies did later on in the mid '90s. And this player was the top paid player at the time on the team. By the way, you were making, according to the internet, you were making a whopping $68,000. So we're talking about inflation in those days. The future Hall of Famer was making $2.25 million. He was at the top of the food chain. The one and only Mike Schmidt.
Yeah, Schmidt. I had one spring season with him, and obviously just an icon, right? I mean, when you walk into that Philly clubhouse, he was the man. And yeah, just again, a great leader, very, very well regarded player in every phase of the game. And so, just having conversations with him during the spring was very enlightening, and he had a lot to do with my faith at that time. And when Mike Schmidt invited me to attend a baseball chapel service, and I was at Baylor, was a Baptist school, but I really never took part of, I see point of the book there. Yeah, I never took really much part in things of faith, but when I got to the major leagues, you kind of put that big league uniform on and you feel like you've accomplished your goal. And so you kind of start to, ask yourself, hey, what's next? What do I want to do next? And Mike Schmidt making that invitation to attend chapel just really set my life on a whole different course, from a faith standpoint. So very, very thankful to him.
You ready for a couple of good laughs, Steve?
Yeah, absolutely.
Lenny Dykstra?
Oh, the dude. Oh my gosh. There's not enough time to talk about that guy.
This is a family show, by the way, so we do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. As interesting of a character that Lenny is, I can't think of another player who had more passion to win than Lenny Dykstra, and he would do anything it took to win, and probably just need to leave it at that.
Yeah, you watch that 1986 show, right? And that's really all you need to know when they put that 4-part series out with the New York Mets.
He was voted most likely to appear on the National Enquirer. I don't know if you heard of this guy, John Kruk.
Oh yeah. He is every bit of the comedian as you see on TV. I mean, he behind the scenes. I mean, he would just keep your belly laughing and make the game light. He was that guy in the clubhouse that every team needs, right? At just the right moment, Kruk would say something and it would just kind of calm everybody down. But internally a super intense player. And what a lot of folks may not know, I mean, John Kruk did not look like the super athlete that he is, but that guy was an all-state basketball player, played multiple sports. He was West Virginia Athlete of the Year. I mean, this guy was a stud when, coming up. Yeah, his body didn't look like it, but man, that guy would compete, and he was great. I remember the first time I played him in horse and basketball, and just absolutely smoked me. I'm like, how did that happen? Like, you look like a jelly bean. How do I get beat by that guy, right? And it's like he just starts laughing, right? So yeah, but love Krucky, man. He was a fun guy to be with for sure.
Let's get to some of your fellow pitchers. Please get him out of New York as soon as possible, Mr. Roger McDowell of Seinfeld fame.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Big Mac. He was again, a great relief pitcher. Sometimes you'd have to ask yourself with his stuff, how does he get guys out? But he did. That sinker ball, Steve, it was unbelievable. I mean, almost so unbelievable at times you had to think there was something that was added to the ball. I don't know how he did it, but he was good.
Steve Bedrosian.
Bedrock. Oh man. Yeah. Didn't get a chance to play them a long time, but yeah, again, one of those most respected players in the league. Just the way he carried himself, the way he led. Obviously great stuff, great competitor. Had I think a better career post Phillies when he was with the Giants. And just a great competitor.
The next name I had to take a double take because I said, this can't be the same guy. It can't be that age. Because watching this year's Rangers, I said to I've been telling Steve, I said, these guys I think are going to the World Series, but they're taking every pitcher and making him into Cy Young. How was this possible? I looked up who their pitching coach is, and you played with him, Mr. Mike Maddox.
I did. Yeah. Yeah. Mike was one of those players that, again, kind of smoke and mirrors his way to the big leagues and didn't have great stuff, but man, he knew how to pitch. And he was one of those guys that got the most out of his gifts and talents, I believe. And you just kind of knew he was going to hang around the game and be really good at whatever he decided to do. And yeah, it's so good to see him back here with the Rangers. He's with them once before when they made those World Series runs, and he's back here again. But that guy is really, really good. Not only technically at coaching, because Steve and I can tell you there's a lot of great coaches who are very technical with the game and can teach you different pieces of the game that'll help you. But it's the way he builds those relationships as well. And to me, that's a coach that understands both sides of the equation. Because coaching is obviously about dealing with people. And Mike develops a great relationship. He respects that part of the game, but very technically good at what he does.
If I can go in the movie Back to the Future and go see you, Pat Combs, in 1989, I would tell you, stick to Mike Maddox, go with him to the bathroom, go with him to the buffet, do whatever you got to do, pick up whatever you can from this guy. I don't know what it is, but everybody touches, he turns to gold. And it's hard to remember that this man had a playing career. He's been coaching forever and ever, but sure enough, he was playing back in the day. And a couple other teams I was just curious about, because you were with the Phillies for a number of years. Did you get to speak to Dale Murphy at all? I saw they were for a couple. He was there for a couple seasons.
Yeah, I played with Dale for about a season and a half, and yeah, one of the, gosh, I mean, you think of Dale Murphy, you just think of the word gentleman. One of the best gentlemen of the game. He was like a statesman, right? I mean, I think the guy could have been president. The way he carried himself, the way he handled his family, very, very respectable guy in all phases of life, just a guy that handles himself really well. But yeah, we had him at the tail end of his career. Of course, the Phillies picked him up from the Braves. He was trying to hang on to get to that magic 500 home run mark. And it was just a pleasure to play with him. And the way he brought kind of a professional presence to the clubhouse is what the Phillies needed at that time. We had a bunch of, as you referred to, just some wild and crazy characters, and he just brought that professionalism that we needed.
If because growing up in that era, I gotta say, if baseball was filled with Dale Murphys and Andre Dawsons, you'd be good to go. Like two guys that really stuck out to me as real gentlemen of the game. Two gentlemen that not otherwise as much, but interesting characters nonetheless. Mitch Williams stuck in there.
Oh yeah.
Did you get the room? Did you get the room with him at all?
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody roomed with Mitch. No, he was on his own there. But yeah, no, yeah, and again, we had him after kind of the peak of his career with the Cubs, and Phillies picks him up for the playoff run, and again, a guy that just wanted to compete and do well every time out, even when his stuff wasn't as good. You could always just count on Mitch saying, "Hey, I want the ball," and yeah, we had a pretty great run there at the end of that '93 season. And I think there were probably, it was a difficult decision for Jim Fregosi at the time, when you considered Mitch was the closer, but we had a couple of young guys that came up that were really pitching well. And one of them is a guy, Steve, you might recognize, Ricky Bottalico. And,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Bottalico went on this crazy run where he didn't give up a run like in his first 19 innings with us, and was just lights out. I mean, nasty slider, great, good fastball, just, competed well with it, with his stuff. And there were a couple of times where I thought, man, he just needs to leave Bottalico in to finish this game. The Mitch would come in and invariably get in trouble, and sometimes he'd work himself out, sometimes he wouldn't. But that ended up costing us in that World Series game against the Blue Jays. Mitch was just out of gas, just didn't have his good stuff. And I thought, man, Bottalico would have finished that game.
I remember watching that game. I was eating Cantonese chow mein. We were having Chinese takeout. I was watching it in the kitchen. My mom says to me, "How is this Joe Carter?" And I said to her, he's going to strike out. Mitch Williams is going to get him. So I don't know. This is, Toronto right now, by the way, they're all in uproar about the playoff series and pulling their pitcher, Barrios, a little early in the game. And everybody's up in arms, but you don't win games if you don't score runs, folks. But I would say in that game, you brought your closer in and you did what you could, and I didn't fault him for it at the time. Watching that 93 team, what did you find it difficult, based on your injuries at the time, or how did you feel? How was your feelings in that moment sitting and watching that 93 season?
Yeah, it was tough, man. I wanted to be there. It's, you get injured as a player. I mean, the thing you want to do is get back as quick as you can, and just had to go through another surgery and was going to miss that whole playoff run. But yeah, you kind of live your life as a player, to get to those points in your career where you can be a part of a playoff team and have a chance to play in a World Series, and it just didn't happen for me. But yeah, it's always fun reflecting back on those times, because obviously the players, what is usually going through their minds at that moment. And yeah, that was a Phillies team where, if you look again on paper, it was probably a team that shouldn't have been to that point. The Atlanta Braves, kind of in the start of their dynasty there in the early '90s, they had a tremendous lineup. There were some other teams there, the Giants and some other teams. I just felt like there's no way we're going to get past some of these teams, and we ended up, winning a couple of key series to get there. And then it looked like after Game 5, the Phillies were gonna have a shot to win it. They came back in the middle of that series and put together a couple of great games, and then Joe Carter hit that was the death blow. The big walk-off home run. I think it's still the only walk-off home run in a World Series to end a series,
Mhm.
right?
I
that's
think you're
the case.
correct. Yeah, absolutely. And it's all about being in the right place at the right time, right? Whether it's injured or whatnot. Because, you bringing up that series in 1993, I was pitching in Double-A at the time for the Toronto Blue Jays. I was in Knoxville, Tennessee. And, you always think of things, right? I'm like, man, big league team's going possibly to the playoffs, and I got a chance if I pitch really well to maybe be there. The whole behold, deadline comes and I get traded to Oakland A's in 1993 for Ricky Henderson. So, it wasn't the right place and right time for me. It was a blessing in disguise. I got traded over to the Oakland A's, went to their Double-A team, made 2 starts, and then they called me up to the big leagues, and that's where my big league career started. So, if I was in Toronto, maybe I would have never even been in the big leagues in 1993, and who knows what would have happened. But at the end of the day, just like you're saying, whether it's an injury or a trade or whatever it might be, there's always a plan, and sometimes it works out in your benefit, and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
Did they mail you World Series ring for having got them Ricky?
I didn't get anything. I was watching at home on the TV and really rooting for some of the guys that were in the big leagues that I knew and that I played with, and was just really happy for them.
It would have been pretty cool back in '93 to sit the 3 of us and chat at the time and see where it was at. But we all, mature, we find our journeys, and life progresses.